Hey folks, it's Joe Casey here. You're listening to G.I. Joe Chronicles. Yo, Joe.
The LONGBOX Crusade presents
G.I. Joe Chronicles.
Don't they realize they're dealing with Destro?
When I choose Scuzz Bucket, they're gonna scrape you off the walls with a squeegee.
Now stop stuttering like a wet toaster and get busy!
Welcome to G.I. Joe Chronicles. I'm one of your commanders, Pat Sampson, codename DJ Kristatos, and joining me as always is my battle buddy in this operation, and that is Jarrod Albrick, codename Death Probe.
Hey, Pat.
Hey.
I'm sorry, I just walked through Orsted's section of the
I told him to do that outside.
It has a unique aroma.
I said, you can't have all, your incense and all that. Just, it's a fire hazard, I said.
Yeah. Well, he does what he does. But anyways, to all the green shirts tuning in for this podcast, welcome back to Fort Longbox. We appreciate you tuning in once again to talk G.I. Joe comics with us as we chronicle our way through the G.I. Joe special missions by Marvel on this very episode. Next episode, we will return to our coverage of G.I. Joe America's Elite. But for this episode, we are back in the 80s, Pat. I got parachute pants on, and it's time to talk about G.I. Joe special missions. On this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles, DJ Kristatos and I are rotating in our special ops guest for the show, and the guest is Jasn Lady, codename Ladybug. Welcome back to Fort Longbox.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem, bud. It's almost like you never left.
I thought he was hanging out with Orsted, too, and then he was back there. They were talking about some kind of a pencil story or something.
Magic pens.
Yeah.
You got a magic pencil? Yeah.
They were sniffing markers or magic markers, and they were sniffing them. And
let it all go, Pat. Now, Mr. Jasn Lady, this is his second episode. He was on the last episode with us where he gave us his origin story and told us who his three favorite characters were. As we like to ask on the return visit, do you have three favorite vehicles of G.I. Joe that you think are kind of cool?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it goes back to the toys that I remember. And, as I mentioned in the last one, I didn't own a ton of G.I. Joe toys, but I played with a lot of other kids' G.I. Joe toys. So here we go. The Wolverine, the missile tank. I thought that was like just an awesome vehicle.
Yes,
my dad's specialty was a tanker, so I loved all the tanks, but that one especially. It featured in that one story where the Cobra is attacking the U.S. Mint, and it's CoverGirl's debut, and she just kicks butt in that tank in that story, and love it. I would say also, I really like the I forget the name of it. It might be the Ram. That is the motorcycle with the Gatling gun on the side. Often driven by rock and roll. I think that is pretty sweet. It's implausible and impractical, but I don't care. It's pretty sweet. And then last but not least, I randomly got the Stealth Fighter for Christmas one year. I don't know why. It must have been on sale, but my mom and dad got me the Stealth Fighter. So soft spot in my heart for the Stealth Fighter and its pilot, Ghost Rider. It was a pretty sweet toy, I gotta say, and really enjoyed it, even though it looked weird on my shelf with all my Star Wars stuff around it. Little out of place, but that's okay. It was pretty cool. So I'd say those are my three favorite vehicles.
That's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet indeed.
Yeah.
I was going to try to remember what the Stealth Fighter looked like. Now I got to look it up.
You won't be able to look it up. It's invisible. You'll be able to find it.
Is it? That's not the one with the wings are.
I remember now. Yep. I remember now.
It's Conquest. You're thinking of the Conquest, I think.
The one he's talking about is the Phantom.
The Phantom. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had to look it up. I hadn't seen that thing in forever.
I owned it. I didn't remember the name.
Yeah. It's called the X-19 Stealth Fighter. It's the Phantom X-19 Stealth Fighter. Came out in apparently 1988.
Kind of an arrowhead shape.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Now I got it.
It had like a neon green on the intakes, and it was very, if he hadn't brought it up as one of his favorites, I might have forgotten about it, but I just looked at it. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
I know which one you're talking about it now. Yep.
Like I said, it was completely random that my mom and dad got it for me, but I thought it was pretty cool.
I mean, if any Joe vehicle is going to blend in with Star Wars, that one's not bad.
Yeah, true. At least it's futuristic looking.
Futuristic look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's from the Empire. Yeah.
Well, that is pretty neat, and I appreciate you sharing. Now, Pat, give us the intel report.
Well, Jarrod, I'm glad you asked. Here is the mission we are covering today. It is G.I. Joe Special Missions number 4. Publisher was Marvel. It's got a cover date of April 1987. Writer was Larry Hama. Penciler is Herb Trimpe. Inker is Herb Trimpe. Colorist is George Russo. The letters go to Joe Rosen. And cover art is Mike Zeck.
Zeck.
And speaking about the cover, Death Pro, please take us through that cover description.
Yes, sir.
Take cover!
The standard 80s G.I. Joe logo is smaller across the top, making room for the larger block letters, white with black highlights, Special Missions. Duke stands in the orange corner box, and the main action depicts Lifeline hanging upside down from a tree in his parachute harness, probably trying to make as little noise as possible because below him, the Oktober Guard are patrolling through the jungle.
Thank you, Jarrod, for that cover description. Now let's find out what we thought of the cover. And we'll start with our guest, Jasn Ladybug. Tell us what your thought is on this cover.
Yes, I like this cover. It's one of those where you look at it and a couple of things stand out to me. One is the perspective. You know, you're kind of looking down on Lifeline, who's hanging from a tree, and you see the Oktober Guard walking by below him. It's very effective use of perspective. You kind of get just in one snapshot the peril that he's in. And you do wonder, how did he get into this situation? How is he going to get out? It's one of those covers that just kind of sucks you in. You can't help but want to know more. So I think it's well done. I didn't know that was Lifeline at first. When I first saw the cover, I'm like, is that Crazy Legs? Is that? I couldn't quite tell who he was. But that's more me just not recognizing the character right off the bat.
I can see that, definitely. I do like this kind of a rakishly angle of it hanging down and the Oktober Guard kind of walking through the forest right under him. And he's just kind of hanging there. As Jarrod said, kind of like, I'm trying to be quiet. Lots of detail. Yeah. Lots of detail on him. Just really, I think, really makes you feel for the tenseness of it all. Jarrod, what's your thoughts?
This may be nostalgia and just me because it was definitely one I had in my collection. But this is a tentpole Special Missions cover to me. This is one that just, I remember. It's burned it. So maybe it's not just me, but it burned into my brain. And I guess it's because, Lifeline has such a striking costume with the reds and the whites. And now that I'm older and I've been introduced to the color wheel by a friend of the show, John Beatty, I know what colors make other colors pop, thanks to said color wheel. And guess what? Green makes red pop. So him hanging upside down in the green jungle with green soldiers underneath of him really makes him leap off the cover in that foreground. It gives it an almost three-dimensional effect. You've got already a great angle and a great drawing, and then the colors really separated as well. And just like you said, Pat, it's Zeck with his eye for detail with the parachute rig and the other leg hooked on a vine. And the colorist did a great job of putting the shadow of the tree, especially if you look at his leg there that's kicked out under the corner box. You can see the shadow of the tree. It just really comes together well. It's one of those ones where as soon as you see it, or at least as soon as I see it, I know what I'm in for.
Yeah, you're right. This is one of those iconic covers that, I remember having. Well, I still have the issue as I'm holding it in my hand. I still have that issue, and I remember what's going on to it. We talked about it in the episode before. This cover actually kind of gives you a little bit what's happening in the story. A little bit different, but kind of what you're about to get into on the story. But I like it. All right. Well, now that we've got the cover thoughts out of the way, let's go ahead and decide how we want to rate this cover. Here on G.I. Joe Chronicles, we have a rating scale of a 1 to 10 flag points. 1 meaning you didn't like it at all, and 10 meaning it's perfect and you should make this a parachuting recruiting poster out of it, or just a walk in the jungle. recruitment poster out of it. Jason, the Ladybug, how would you rate this cover?
I rate this one an 8, a solid 8, to quote Jarrod from the last podcast. I think it's very well done for all the reasons that we've said. It's eye-catching. You can't help but wonder what is going on in this story. How did Lifeline get into this mess? How is Lifeline going to get out? And, oh, cool, the Oktober Guard are in this too, if you recognize them. You know, they're cool reoccurring bad guys, antagonists, I should say they are. And to see them on the cover too, I think would draw one in as well. So solid 8 for me.
Jarrod, are you with Jason on an 8, or are you going higher or lower?
First of all, I'm impressed by his memory. I mean, he's remembering things that I said a month ago on another podcast. It's incredible.
Maybe he wrote that down with a magic pen or something.
Maybe. But Pat, my nostalgia member berries are tingling.
Ooh,
This is a flat out 10 for me.
Yo, Joe!
I love the art. I love the color. I love the balance. I love the story. I willingly admit that it may be because I had this as a kid and read over it and poured over it. And it doesn't hurt at all. It's got, I love the Oktober Guard. It doesn't hurt
that's
at all.
big
The Oktober Guard is right there. I'm not a huge Lifeline guy. That doesn't mean I dislike Lifeline. I think Lifeline is fine. I think he's cool. Always liked his figure. In fact, I have 2 Lifeline figures, original Lifeline figures right now. The other one I'll probably just throw away because Pat wouldn't want it.
No.
But I don't even have to be the biggest Lifeline fan on the planet to recognize a really good drawing from a really cool angle with some really cool villain. Let me shut up. It's a 10.
Yeah, definitely. Just seeing the Oktober Guard and Lifeline in that pose, I know what this issue was about. It's cool to reread it again and just go, oh yeah, this is so good. So, giving away what we're going to talk about, but you are right. This is an iconic cover for just nostalgic and just how special Missions was. It was really something that just made these issues just kind of stand out, especially these earlier issues. It was like, wow, I'm getting, Joe's again, and just their missions. And I'll get into it about the story too. So I'm just getting excited about it. So it's a 10 for me as well.
Yo, Joe!
With that cover out of the way, let's go back to Death Probe so we can actually get into the story with a story synopsis in our mission brief.
Look in the eyes of a hero and see the sacrifice within. There's no way out for the hero. He only lives to fight again. A hero says all not for fortune or fame, but death, freedom, cause we all just want it the same. Real heroes don't give up.
Wild Bill, Leatherneck, Roadblock, and Lifeline are returning from a covert op where they stole a Cobra fire bat in order to gain access to its black boxes. You know who else wants those black boxes? The Oktober Guard. So the Guard shoots down the Joe aircraft over the Malay Peninsula, and the Joes return the favor by shooting down the Guard's Hind helicopter. So now it's a land navigation battle, and an actual battle or two, to see who will retrieve the black boxes first. Don't forget to watch out for those sexy river pirates.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Okay, it is time for highs and lows of the issue. Let's take the over and under on how many Jasn Lady has. I'm saying he has at least 11.
I'll try to restrain myself.
It's quite all right. What have you got in round 1? What are you going to lead us off with, my friend?
Okay, I won't read every single note I have.
I don't believe you.
The highlights. So this issue of G.I. Joe Special Missions was a lot of fun to read. As I've stated on the last time I appeared, I loved the old G.I. Joe comics from the 80s and the early 90s. So this really took me back reading it. I really enjoyed it. This is a Larry Hama, typical military adventure. Lots of twists and turns, some cool military kind of jargon and trivia thrown in there. Just a really solid adventure story. I like the progression, like you said in the story synopsis, from the air battle to then being the game of cat and mouse in the jungle that they're playing on the ground. I've always liked the Oktober Guard as antagonists. I like they're not evil. They're not flat out villains. They have their own code names. They're the Russian version of the G.I. Joe team. They always have their own little character moments. And they're never incompetent. They're never stupid. They're never played for fools. They're always the equals of the Joes. And I always think that makes them really interesting. They're kind of doing their job, basically. I like the surprise of Lifeline. Larry Hama did this a lot. There was always like a character with a kind of hidden something about them, a new character that you hadn't seen before. Him being a black belt in Aikido, kind of coming out of nowhere. I thought that was an interesting twist. I liked the ending. Larry Hama did a really good job with the endings of these stories where like nobody really wins. Like it's a really ambiguous ending where everybody kind of walks off and goes their separate ways. And it's like, crud, none of us accomplished our mission objective here. It was always a bit of a downbeat ending. And I always thought that was really interesting with Hama's stories. And then I have to call out one action moment, and that is Leatherneck parachuting down and shooting off a Stinger missile and shooting down the helicopter that shot them down.
That was pretty awesome.
It was pretty sweet. Putting aside that the recoil probably should have thrown him like a few miles, in the other direction. The law of motion or whatever you call that. But equal and opposite reaction. But we won't pay attention to that. We'll just admire how cool that was. So those are my thoughts on the issue as far as the highs. I have a few lows, but we'll get to those.
All right, then. Pat, he didn't hit 11. I think he got more like 7, so he's getting better.
There's a few left there, but I did like that part that Jason mentioned with Leatherneck just kind of jumping out and shooting. It's kind of parallel to what we read last episode in America's Elite with Flint doing that as well. He goes, I'm shooting. I'm on a parachute. I'm still going to man of action and I'm going to have fun. So really cool. And as I mentioned, what makes these issues so special, and not to be punny about, special missions, is that in this issue, there's like 4 people that get hurt. Some of them get hurt kind of really bad. It's like, ooh, are they going to make it? Are they not going to make it?
Yeah.
So it had some extra stake in this for both teams because I do care for the Joe team and the characters that did get hurt, but also because the Oktober Guard and reading them prior, and they're just, like Jason said, they're a good foil to the G.I. Joe team, that they're so, equally leveled that to see them get hurt, I was like, oh no, I know how the stories end, but still, I was like, this is really good writing and just so deep with the other story beat that's kind of going on in this one with Lifeline and the type of person he is, that he would get kind of pushed around, joked about, and certain people on this team would even kind of do that to him, knowing what his role is, and that he's just, he's there as the medic. He's supposed to help people, but he's as he said, I'm a non-combative person in this. And so I really liked how they kind of fleshed that out, but yet still made him that you could be that way and still have some good morals, and just still do good stuff.
I concur. I mean, one of the obviously overarching points of this issue is, Leatherneck calling him useless, and there's parts where Leatherneck's like, I need you to return fire. We're all going to die. What I liked about how Larry handled that is Leatherneck's kind of a bully, but they put him in situations where you're like, okay, he used to being a jerk to Lifeline, but you kind of understand. Because you're like, I need you to return fire right now. We are all going to die. You're not going to have anyone to patch up if you don't play,
There's only 4 of us. Yeah.
And that's what makes it so realistic that you can believe that, because you did see him get hurt and, the other Joe get hit too, Wild Bill get hit. So it's like, oh no, there's some urgency here.
And Leatherneck's ticked about it because he's basically like, Wild Bill might not be hit if you were a team player, and they could have gone too far and made Leatherneck a full-blown bully or a goofball incompetent, but they didn't. Like, he was the one that smelled the Russian tobacco. And
that was a cool moment. That was a cool
moment.
Yeah.
So they were able to have him kind of be a turd to Lifeline, but an understandable turd where you didn't hate him. It was fair. His point of view was fair, but, Lifeline had to be true to himself. So this is really good Larry storytelling from that regard. And that's sort of like the through line of the story, but all the other cool stuff you guys mentioned going on around it. And I'll save anything else I have to say for round 2, which starts back up top with Jasn the Ladybug.
Sure. So a couple other just really short highs. One of them was the Colonel, the leader of the Oktober Guard. I forget his name, but refusing to take a painkiller because he's like, it will. Yes. He's like, it will fog my mind and I won't be able to lead effectively. So I'm not going to take a painkiller. So a great tough guy moment, and just a great moment of, I'm going to endure some pain and some punishment for the good of our mission and for the good of our unit. Again, Hama giving really cool moments to characters where he didn't have to do that. He could have just left that out. But it's like, oh, wow, this guy has as much grit and toughness as like a Duke or a Hawk or a Snake Eyes or like the Stalker, like any of the Joes, really showing that respect to him, even though he's technically on the enemy side. I like, too, that moment where Leatherneck, they come to that bend in the jungle, and he's like, if they're going to do an ambush, this is going to be the spot. And then he smells the tobacco, and he's like, everybody get down. It's like, to your point, he could have just been a jerk and been incompetent. Larry Hama didn't need to do that. It's like he could be a little bit of a jerk. He could kind of be the Guy Gardner of the group a little bit, to pull in a Justice League character name. But he didn't. He didn't go all the way and said he's going to be competent. There's a reason he's on the Joe team, because he has skills. Just one low for me with the story was the conflict between Leatherneck and Lifeline. I felt was maybe got into a little bit contrived territory. But what it did, though, it actually prompted me to do some research on medics, military medics, and are they allowed to fight? Because I always thought that they actually weren't, but it turns out they can. And Jarrod, from your experience for sure, maybe you can weigh in, but from what I read, they can fight defensively, and especially to protect the casualties that they're treating, and they are armed. I actually didn't know that. I thought they were not armed. What we saw happening here was kind of realistic. Now, I don't totally buy the Lifeline being like, I'm never going to shoot. I'm a pacifist. I'm like, how'd you get on the Joe team if you're refusing to fight, right?
What was on your resume?
Even at the level that a medic would do, right, which is purely defensive, it's like, you would at least do that, right? And that's where Leatherneck, you can see his point of view. It's like, will you at least do that part, that you as a medic can do? And then Leatherneck, too, I thought it went a little too far with him disparaging Lifeline, because I think with his experience, he would see the value in a good medic and having a medic with him, and so there were some of the insults he was throwing and stuff. I was kind of like, okay, I know he's pissed and all that, but I'm like, come on, you're maybe going a little too far. Like, this guy could save your life, Leatherneck. Come on. So that was the only low of the story for me. Otherwise, really liked it. Like I said. Yeah,
I'd rather bleed. That's what he said at one point.
Yeah, I know.
I'll forgive Larry for that, because he's going big to for the story. Yeah. But I do read you on that. I was like, at some points I was like, come on, Leatherneck, calm down. And at some points at some points I was like, Lifeline, you might want to get your pistol out.
Yeah. I think you'd be okay in this case. You'd be okay shooting back. Yeah.
Yeah, I might be like, all right, dude, it's time to fire back. Anyway, Pat, what do you got?
It is definitely an interesting story that Larry was kind of weaving through. What I like, too, is there's another story between the Oktober Guard and the differences between them and the Joes, / Lifeline as well, too, is the tiger. You have the tiger that kind of sneaks up, right, in the jungle, and Leatherneck wants to shoot him, right? It's like, well, I'll take care of him. But then Lifeline says, no, don't do anything. If you don't do anything, this thing will walk away. And it did. Then in a few panels next, you see the Oktober Guard, and they're talking about, well, what's in the jungle. And I think it's the bigger guy. He decides, it kind of says like they find footprints, and the footprints are tiger prints. So they're kind of like, oh, man, there's a tiger out here. What's going to pop out at us? And we got to be ready. And I'm assuming they would probably shoot just to get that off of them if the tiger did attack. Down the story a little bit more, you find out why the Joes are fighting. All of a sudden there's a roar, and you're going, okay, the tiger's coming back, and now it's going to go after the Oktober Guard. But no, the story just changes. It goes a little bit bonkers with these these pirates now just show
Sexy river pilots.
Yeah, they're like, yeah.
Sarawak Sally is the pirate queen.
Of course.
And I'm like, oh wow, this is just totally bonkers. You got these crazy pirates. Yeah. And they just, I can see they took them over, they're like two guys wounded, just kind of, each team were wounded. So yeah, they're going to get taken over. And then they're having these fights, just to show how kind of brutal these pirates can be, even though they may be sexy, they still got their brutalness.
Brutal pirate ways.
of combat. And then if you don't win, then you get shot. And oh man, just to build up that part of the story too. So it just took a turn and then another turn. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
She was all like, you're about to do our bidding for our entertainment, and I'm like, if I was them, I'd be like, please say it's a tickle fight. Please say it's a tickle fight. Dang it. Yeah, it did get bonkers with pirates.
I figured you'd probably like that part. You like a little.
I do like bonkers. And I was like, of course she's sexy with a little halter top and short shorts. Why not?
I didn't get super
80s, man. That's how river pirates were.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's hot in the jungle,
Yeah.
Larry Hama did a good job of that. They'd visit like some random region of the world, and like they'd have like a local group of guerrillas a lot of the time, or like local rebels, and they always had their own personalities. They were never just like generic goons or whatever. There was always like a leader who was like a real colorful character and stuff. This is no exception. It's another example of that.
It's great. For my final high, I'm going to do that thing that I do, but I have to do it. Herb Trimpe is the G.I. Joe artist to me, always will be. Not just because he, could meet a deadline, which was really important to Larry. It's just that Herb can draw anything and everything. He must have had some incredible reference books for military equipment laying around his art studio, because look at this plane at the beginning. I know planes pretty well, but this like twin engine, two engines are very high. I don't even know this plane, which is rare for me to not know a plane. So the usual research and development people can let us know what kind of a plane it is. But he draws it amazing. He draws the hind amazing. The Firebat's not even real. He draws it amazing. The riverboat's amazing. So Herb had this wonderful ability, what I'm trying to say, to draw people. He had to draw so many different characters too. It's G.I. Joe, right? It's ridiculous. Yeah. And all this great military equipment. And he's just so good at it. And he made those deadlines. And, again, if rumors are to believe, Larry is a very demanding writer on his artist. And Herb could answer the call on all those accounts. And yeah, it's one thing I think we missed, Pat, when we were kids and this book came out and we were just so happy to have another Joe book. I think now that we're adults, we can go, oh, it was the return of Trimpe.
Yeah. At the time,
makes it even more fun now.
Yeah. At the time, I wasn't into, who wrote it or whatever. I knew Larry. He's a writer because, he's writing the story. I should say, but the artists behind it, the letterers and that, until you really start to dig into the hobby and, see what it takes to make these things, just hats off to them. What great work they could do in a timely manner too. To them, that's their job. So they needed to get this out in order to keep making money.
And to some extent, these comics doubled as a toy commercial, and they were at the demands of Hasbro to some extent. Hey, you have to include this new action figure we put out. You have to include this new vehicle that we put out. And so they were constantly having to, like you guys said, draw a new character, draw a new vehicle. I think every other issue, there was something new being introduced for a while there. And they just had to roll with that. And they had to make it look like the actual, genuine article. They're hoping kids will read these comics and say, hey, mom and dad, buy me that, They had to deal with that dimension of it too. And I find it fascinating that they were just so good at it and they stayed on schedule, like you said.
All right. Anything else?
I just want to say one more thing.
There we go.
That I wasn't sure if you guys would say this or not, but again, I don't know if it's Larry or if it's, Herb Trimpe doing this, but when Lifeline tells Roadblock to pick up Wild Bill, because they got to go, they show that panel of Wild Bill, or that panel of Roadblock. He's got Wild Bill kind of covering in him, but he's got Wild Bill's hat on.
Yes.
Oh,
I noticed
man.
that.
I just saw that and like, man.
I missed that. Now, who's got it
detail.
on?
Not going to leave that hat behind. He's going to take the hat.
Oh, I
Yeah.
missed that. Nice catch.
Man. The minute I saw it, like, oh, man.
I've read this book like 1,000 times.
I was like, that's Roblox with a cowboy hat on.
There it is. Oh, how did that not stay in my brain? That's
like, Wild Bill, we're not going to leave you behind. We're not going to leave your hat behind either.
Yeah.
Well, these are soldiers, and that's Wild Bill's cav hat. Roblox knows that that's important.
I knew that. I might have just told you guys who's got my silver star on that one. But anyway, that was just cool. Cool call out and just so cool.
All right. Well, Pat, while you got your hot hands on the mic, how about you give us the IG's report on the combat readiness of this issue?
Well, thank you, Jarrett. For those of you who don't speak military, that means we're going to score this issue story on the same 1 to 10 flag point scale we used earlier. So, Jason, on a scale of 1 to 10 flag points, how many will you be giving for this issue?
I give it 9 flag points. I thought this comic was a lot of fun to read. I love, like I said earlier, this mode of storytelling that Larry Hama does so well, the military mission adventures with all the twists and turns and the cool trivia, like the how to get rid of the leeches and the use of words like enfilade, I think it was. Like it's used in a lot of Larry Hama stories. Had to go look that up. But I was like, oh, cool. It's all military tactics stuff. So it's like everything I want in a G.I. Joe story. And it being special missions, you don't have Cobra there, but that's okay. You don't need them. The G.I. Joe team can do lots of different things, be involved in a lot of different kinds of stories. And I thought this was a lot of fun to read. So I give it a 9.
Solid 9 from Jasn Lady. Jarrett, are you going to go all the way, or are you going to equal or below?
Rev up the engines. I'm going all the way into the danger zone. I'm giving it a 10.
Yo, Joe!
Once again, more than willing to admit nostalgia plays a factor in this. It's just one that I've read a bazillion times, and I'm so mad I didn't key him on the hat thing. But you know what? That's what makes comics fun. Sometimes you read, you see that one more thing, or you watch an old movie you've seen 100 times, you catch one more new joke or something that you missed before. Which happens to me. Every time I watch Ghostbusters, I swear I find one more new joke than I missed before. But a 10, Pat. It's great.
I am going to again join you at that 10 too.
Yo, Joe!
This is just so nostalgic for me. I did forget a little bit about it, especially the crazy pirates that show up again. But it just made it fun, and it was a good read. A quick read as well, too. It wasn't overworldly. Trimpe's art kind of helped move that along also. So solid 10 of fun for me. All right, now it's time to award the episode Silver Star Medal or Silver Snake for gallantry in action or sneaky snakytude. This is where each of us will get to award the character in the issue who went above and beyond the call of duty. So, Jason, the Ladybug, who got your Silver Star or Sneaky Snake?
I'll do Silver Star for Wild Bill.
Oh, okay.
He is normally the pilot, but he was forced into a situation he's not normally in. That is leading a ground mission, and he is firing a rifle, which is not something he normally has to do. And he is just jumping in and just doing it. And he gets pretty seriously wounded in the process, and he is still leading the team. He's the only officer on the scene, as far as I know. He is leading them through the mission, and they are getting things done. So he is nonplussed by, his aircraft getting shot down. He is just taking charge and moving on with things. So Silver Star to Wild Bill.
Okay. Jarrett, who is your Silver Star or your Sneaky Snake?
The easy one to do would be Lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give it to Leatherline, the bickering duo that is Lifeline and Leatherneck.
Leatherline.
Leatherline, Life Neck. All right.
Life Neck.
All right. No, if I had to pick one, I've always been a Guy Gardner fan. So I'm picking Leatherneck. Okay. Sure. Because I like his snaps, even though he was a turd about it. I like his snaps. And in many other ways, he's like Guy Gardner. Like Guy Gardner is a turd, right? But I know we're going to talk about another comic here briefly, but I've often told people the reason I like Guy Gardner so much is he is a turd. He's difficult to work with, and he's a jerk. But, you know, if you were one of the Justice League and somebody kidnapped you and took you to a faraway place, which member would you want looking for you?
Mm-hmm.
Which one would never stop looking until he found you? And surprisingly, I think the answer is Guy Gardner. He has he has that no quit in him that I might be a turd, I might be a jerk, but I will not let anybody hurt someone on my team. I just won't, you know, and I love that about it. And I felt like that was Leatherneck in this issue. So I'll be a little contrary and pull Leatherneck, even though Lifeline clearly deserves it.
Yeah.
And definitely. I also pick Sexy River Pirate Lady.
Arg.
Arr, matey.
Yeah, definitely. Leatherneck was a good choice as well, too. And we can, you know, the obvious one, like you said, is Lifeline. Should be. But I'm going to pick Roadblock just because I thought, how cool was that he actually, you know, he made sure to grab Wild Bill's hat as well, because, you know, it means something to Wild Bill. And so it's just like Indiana Jones. You got to bring that hat with him. And that's what makes that character. Roadblock knew that, and he brought that along with him. So my silver medal goes to Roadblock for keeping that hat alive, never leaving a hat down. With that segment done, let's go ahead and go to Death Probe for Death Probe's Toy Chest.
It's here, the G.I. Joe collection, each sold separately. G.I. Joe from Hasbro.
Yes, indeed. It is time to open up the toy chest. And in this segment, I will take something or someone featured in this issue and give you a brief toy history on it. This issue I have selected, Leatherneck. One of my favorite things about Leatherneck on his file card is, you know, they'll tell you what they're special. Like Snake Eyes says Commando and Stalker says Ranger and so on and so forth. And communications personnel, all that kind of stuff. Leatherneck says Marine. It just says Marine. And it's kind of funny because he doesn't like have a real specialty. But the more I think of it, and you know, I've served with plenty of Marines. Like if you're the top Marine, good enough to be in the Joe team, you are one heck of a Marine. So I get it. You are one heck of a combat warrior. His real name is Wendell A. Metzger. He's from Stromsburg, Nebraska. He appeared in Series 5 of the figures in 1986 and was discontinued in 1988. His uniform may be one of the most sort of accurate uniforms in all of G.I. Joe land because it's pretty much a Marine BDU fatigues uniform with black tack gear. I would say just off the top of my head, and I'll wait for our R&D folks to weigh in on this later, but I would say probably Gung Ho in his dress blues is probably the most single accurate one. This one has got to be top 5 at least, if not in the number 2 spot for actual military uniform use. Leatherneck came with a gray rifle and a green backpack, and as of the recording of this, which is April of 2024, there are currently 9 3 3/4 inch versions of Leatherneck.
Wow.
Jasn Lady, you got a Leatherneck?
Let me see. It feels pretty soft to me.
It's all fleshy and pink.
Yeah. Squishy, gummy. Yeah. Like a gummy bear. Yeah, definitely not a Leatherneck. No, I never had this toy. Like I said on the other show, when I collected G.I. Joe toys, I was buying a lot of those bad guy troops just because they look so cool. I think Leatherneck is probably one I would have overlooked, honestly, in favor of some of those more like kind of crazy looking ones, you know, that they had. You know, to your point, though, especially for this era of the toy line, he has one of the more realistic looks about him because they were getting to kind of the outrageous neon, bright red, bright green, highlighter green, bright yellow, you know, characters. Yeah. And he looks subdued. He could actually fit in with the original 13 to some extent, I would think, the original group of action figures they produced. So, but no, I never had him.
Pat, how's your neck? Is it made of leather?
No, it's not bad. It's not really sunny out, but eventually it may get a little. If I don't put some lotion on it, it'll get pretty leathery. Yeah.
Yeah, put lotion on me.
Yeah, gotta moisturize.
Yeah. No, I did not have a Leatherneck in my collection. You know, I wish I did because I think I've said this before, but my dad was in the Marines, so that holds a special place in my heart. for his service and him being a Marine. I just remember how kind of proud he was that he served, and that was what he was in. And as a kid, I can remember being younger and the hat that Leatherneck has. I had my dad's hat like that.
Yeah.
And just playing when, we would play Army in the background or things like that. I'd have my dad's hat like that. And I also would wear his, what's the other, the
dress hat? The dress uniform?
No, he didn't let me touch that. But that is also still, I believe that's probably still in his closet too, his dress uniform and all that. But
like his boonie hat with the floppy,
the floppy rim all the way around.
That's what we call it.
Boonie hat, where it's white and it's just like when they say like Snake Eyes had it in when him Stalker and
shading his face,
that hat was cool because I always thought then I was like, ooh, look at me, I'm Snake Eyes back when
Snake Eyes
in that issue where he's like him and they're back in the Nam and that's where it was. I'm like, cool. It's just so much memories of that as a kid. And a Leatherneck would be one that I would want to get. And when Jarrod mentioned Gung Ho and the dress blues, I'd like to get that too, just to have something as a kind of reminder for me of my dad and buying these toys for me as a kid. And, he let me get a subscription to G.I. Joe. So I had a subscription to G.I. Joe as well too. So yeah, it brings back some good memories.
Awesome. I've had Leatherneck since about the 80s. I traded for him. I know I got him used, and no, Pat, I didn't get him the way you think I got him.
No, okay. Right.
I would cop to it if I did. But I'm pretty sure I traded something to another kid to get him, because my big memory of him is even when I got him from the kid, he was real loose. You know how sometimes the legs kind of get loose and floppy. Not necessarily a bad O-ring, but just kind of loose, know, and I think that's the one I still have to this day, and he is so hard to stand up because he just
jello,
ragdoll on me. Yeah, but I had Leatherneck, and I thought he was cool, and I just kind of always associate him kind of like Leatherneck, Wetsuit. I feel like they kind of went at each other sometimes, maybe in the comics. Leatherneck, Wetsuit, and like
Leatherneck had a grudge against Outback because Outback went on that mission, and the others that he was on the mission with were POWs. Outback got away and came all the way back to the States. Leatherneck was like, "How could you have left them behind?" And like gave him this hard time for months. That might be what you're thinking of. As
maybe. But anyways, dude, what a great time to collect figures, and I still have that loosey goosey one in my collection.
Up next is our feedback segment called Combat Comms.
Call in G.I. Joe! Go get Breaker! He can do it!
As always, we will start off Combat Comms with a roster of our battle-hardened Crusader Club veterans. These are the fine folks that have joined our Crusaders Club. They enjoy early access to special Longbox video episodes, free raffle giveaways, voting on show programming, and so much more. So these other folks reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to the show.
Alan W. Wright.
And Helica Wolf.
Oh.
Auburn Elvis.
Bill Beer. Bill Dunleavy.
Braxton Underwood.
Clark Westfield.
Clinton Robinson.
Captain Entropy.
Dave Collins.
Battle Wagon.
Ezra Gallo.
Gary V. From Research and Development.
Gene Hendricks.
Gerald O.D. Green.
Heinz K.
Jason Keene.
Jason Lady.
Doesn't sound like a real person. I don't buy it.
Jeff Polier.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman. I hope you like Jim Jarman too.
Jim Meal. Also from Research and Development and The Outpost.
Joe Thomas.
John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Captivating Kathy Bright, the MVP.
Matt and Lizzie Passo.
Research and Development.
Mark Ross.
Maxwell Travar.
Miranda W.
P.D. Devins.
Paul Hicks.
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob Morgan.
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington,
and Toronto Cop. If we missed anyone on our list, we do apologize. Please keep in mind that we record these episodes very, very well in advance of release. So if you are a recent addition, we should be adding you soon. But still, don't worry about it. Just let us know that we missed you by sending us an email to contact@longboxcrusade.com, and we will get it straightened out. So you might be asking yourself, how do I become a Crusaders Club member? You know, it's easy and it's simple. Just head on over to patreon.com and search for Longbox Crusade for as little as $1 a month. Just $1 a month. You'll get all the access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club. Come and check it out.
And that will bring us to mission complete status for this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles. If you'd like to hear more from us in the realm of comic books, action films, vintage TV, movies, serials, and more, check out the entire Longbox Crusade Network. DJ Kristatos, where can they find that?
Well, Jarrod, if you like classy and fancy and just all around a lot of cool guys and girls, you know, we have a lot of cool girls as well, too, that hang around with us. You can find the Longbox Crusade on pretty much all the podcatchers out there. Just go ahead and look up Longbox Crusade and you will find us. Or you can go to www.longboxcrusade.com. We can also be found on X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to just put us on the YouTube and just play us in the background while you're doing your yard work, your homework, any kind of work that you're doing, or you just want something on in the background while you're sleeping, you know, just put it on while you're sleeping and it'll probably play the episodes and continue to play more and more episodes, helping us build our numbers up. So we would really appreciate it to find us on the YouTube as well. And all that's out there under Longbox Crusade. Back to you, Jarrod.
All right, Pat, if you'd like to chat with us personally online, we can be found at, back to you, Pat.
Oh, Jarrod, you got me on that one. I can be found at Kristatos01, but where can you be found? Jarrod, back to you.
I am at Yard Sale Artist on X and Facebook, and Instagram is all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. And the moment you've all been waiting for, Mr. Jasn Lady, where can folks find you and those cool books you write?
Sure. Like it says on the screen there, I am the author of the Magic Pen Adventures. They are a series of 3 books for middle school kids, probably 4th through 7th grade, about kids that get a hold of a magic pen. Everything they draw becomes real when they draw with it. Monster problems, super problems, and time problems are the titles, and they're available on Amazon.com and everywhere else online. You can buy books, and I may or may not have a 4th one coming out next year. We'll have to see. Some news might be coming out soon.
Ooh.
Stay tuned.
Ooh.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode of G.I. Joe Chronicles. We'll see you on the battlefield next episode, where we will return to our coverage of the 2006 Devil's Due series, G.I. Joe, America's Elite. We're going to cover issue number 5, called Damage Report. Until then, platoon, fall out.
Yo, Joe.
The music themes for this show are done by musical genius Joe November. Please check out his SoundCloud at Josephline99. That's Joseflin 99. You will not regret it.
Well, Jarrod, I'm glad you asked. I'll go ahead and get to the intel report right now. Now's the part of the show where we debrief our recruits.
No, did it again.
I did it again.
You can't handle it when I throw it to you real fast like that.
No, because I don't scroll down enough now. All right.
I like story synopsis. Sound like Sean Connery.
With our story synopsis.
Righty-o, lad. All right, here we go.
So there I was on the beach in my
Jarrod,
my Terry Cough onesie, and it was getting super hot. So I was like, "Hey,
Jasn Lady's got to go to bed eventually."
The boys are sweating. I put on my Zardoz.
Jasn Lady's got to go to sleep.
Okay, sorry.
All right, here we go. That just went on, man.
You have to do it the Chicago way.
now he's pulling a devil, but he's keeping himself up. All right, here we go for reals. Here we go for reals.